In a small coastal town where the sea whispered secrets to those who listened, lived a young woman named Clara. She worked at a modest cafe near the harbor, a place where fishermen came for their morning coffee, where laughter mixed with the scent of salt and roasted beans, and where stories of storms and survival drifted through the air like gentle tides. Clara wasn't remarkable by the world's standards. She had no wealth, no fame, and no extraordinary talents. But she had something quietly powerful, a heart that noticed what others overlooked. She saw the tiredness behind the fisherman's grin, the loneliness in the widow's polite smile, the uncertainty in the eyes of tourists who had lost their way. To her, every person was a story waiting to be seen. One rainy morning, the town awoke to gray skies and heavier hearts. The sea had swallowed 2 boats the night before, and everyone knew someone affected. The cafe, usually filled with chatter, sat in silence except for the clinking of cups. Clara moved between tables, serving coffee, her heart aching with the shared sorrow that blanketed the town. As she turned to pour another cup, her gaze landed on an old man sitting by the window. His clothes were drenched, his hands trembling as he clutched a wet envelope. He wasn't one of the regulars. His eyes, deep and distant, seemed fixed on something beyond the sea's horizon. Clara approached softly. "Would you like something warm?" she asked, her voice gentle. The man looked up, startled as though pulled from faraway thoughts. "Just hot water," he murmured. Clara nodded and returned a few moments later with steaming water and a small pastry on the side. "On the house," she said with a smile. He blinked at the pastry. "I didn't order this." "I know," Clara replied, placing it in front of him. "But I think everyone deserves something sweet on a rainy day." For a long moment, the man stared at her, then at the pastry. His lips quivered, but no words came. He broke it in half, and something in his face softened, like a wave retreating from the shore. Later that afternoon, when the rain stopped and the cafe emptied, Clara noticed that the men had left. On the table lay the empty cup and a folded note under the saucer. She picked it up, expecting a thank you. Instead, it read, "You saved my life today. I came here to say goodbye to the world. But your kindness reminded me that not all is lost. Thank you for the water, the pastry, and the warmth I didn't know I needed." Clara froze, her eyes blurring as she read it again and again. She had never imagined that a simple act could change the course of someone's life. That night, she stood by the harbor, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the water. It was then she realized, kindness doesn't just stay where it's given. It moves, travels, and multiplies like ripples in the sea. In the following days, she kept the note close to her heart. It became her reminder that small gestures could have unimaginable reach. Without intending to, she began doing more. She left encouraging notes in books at the library, brought soup to the lonely woman next door, and offered free coffee refills to tired travelers. Her kindness wasn't grand, but it was constant, and like the tide, it touched every shore it could reach. Months passed, and word of the cafe with the kind-hearted barista began to spread. People came from nearby towns not just for the coffee, but for the feeling they couldn't quite name, a sense of peace that lingered long after they left. One day, a young journalist named Leo stopped by. He was on assignment to cover local human interest stories. He had heard whispers about Clara and her cafe and decided to see it for himself. After observing her for a day, he approached her during a quiet moment. "You seem to be doing something special here," he said, setting his notepad on the counter. Clara chuckled softly. "I just make coffee and try to be kind. That's all." Leo smiled. "Sometimes that's more powerful than any headline. Would you mind if I wrote about you?" She hesitated. "I don't know if it's worth writing about. I'm just doing what anyone should." But Leo insisted, and a week later, his article appeared online under the title, "The Ripple of Kindness in a Seaside Cafe." He described Clara's small gestures, the stories of the people she helped, and even included the anonymous note she had once received. The story went viral within days. People around the world read about the girl from the harbor cafe who had unknowingly saved a life and continued to make others brighter. Comments flooded in, some sharing how they had been inspired to do something kind, others simply thanking her for restoring their faith in humanity. Clara was overwhelmed. She hadn't sought attention or praise. But what touched her most was seeing people from all walks of life start their own ripples of kindness. A teacher from Brazil wrote about starting a kindness club in her school. A baker from Italy began leaving free bread at his shop's door each evening. A nurse from Japan shared how she'd begun writing small notes of encouragement for her patients. Each story reached Clara like waves returning to shore. Her quiet life had unknowingly become the spark for thousands of others. Yet, amidst all the joy, Clara never forgot the man with the wet envelope. She wondered what had become of him. One afternoon, nearly a year after that rainy morning, a letter arrived at the cafe addressed to her. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. Dear Clara, you may not remember me, but I was the man you gave the pastry to. That day, I was ready to end my life after losing everything, my wife, my home, my purpose. Your kindness was the first light I'd seen in months. I left town that day, determined to start anew. I began volunteering at shelters, sharing food and warmth with those who had none. One day, I told them about you, the girl who reminded me that one act of kindness can save a life. They called it the ripple effect. Today, I'm writing to tell you that our small group has grown. We've helped hundreds find homes, jobs, and hope again. All because one person offered a stranger a cup of hot water and a bit of sweetness on a rainy day. You started a ripple that reached 1 million hearts, Clara. Thank you. With all my gratitude. Thomas. Clara pressed the letter to her chest, tears streaming down her face. It was more than she had ever dreamed, that her simplest gesture could inspire a movement across lives she'd never even meet. In the years that followed, the cafe became more than a place for coffee. It became a sanctuary of kindness. Walls once bare now carried notes from people around the world, stories of compassion, second chances, and unexpected goodness. Travelers left behind letters, coins, or tokens, each a small tribute to the ripple Clara had begun. But Clara herself remained humble. When people asked her how she had done it, she would smile and say, I didn't do anything special. I just believe that kindness, no matter how small, never stops moving. The town flourished, not just in trade or tourism, but in spirit. Neighbors helped one another more freely, strangers smiled more often, and even the sea seemed to glimmer a little brighter beneath the sun. Years later, when Clara grew old and her hands trembled like the waves she'd watched all her life, the cafe continued under the care of those she'd inspired. Young people carried her legacy forward, greeting customers with the same warmth and grace she once gave to a lonely man on a rainy day. And though Clara eventually passed away, her story lived on, not just in books or articles, but in the quiet actions of countless souls. Every time someone offered a helping hand, shared a meal, or smiled at a stranger, a little piece of Clara's ripple carried onward. Because kindness, once released into the world, never truly fades. It moves from heart to heart, across oceans and generations, touching lives we may never see. It begins with one act, a smile, a word, a pastry, and grows until the whole world feels its echo. In the small harbor town, where the waves still sang their eternal song, people often told newcomers the tale of the ripple that reached 1 million. They spoke of Clara, the woman who reminded everyone that no act of kindness is ever wasted, and that even the smallest ripple can one day become a tide that changes the world. And somewhere beyond the horizon, where ripples meet the endless sea, her kindness still moves, quietly, endlessly, beautifully.